And thanks for staying with us. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Truth for Our Time as we give you news you can use and help you live God's Word in today's world. Because if He expects you to live it, He's directed you how to do it. And so if He's expects you to live through it, He's directed you how to do it. So I want to read another quote, Noah Webster. Our citizens should early understand that the genuine source of correct Republican principles is the Bible, particularly the New Testament or the Christian religion. Noah Webster, one of those guys who understood the foundations of our country. And so for all of those haters out there, and there are a good many haters out there, let me tell you, they've lit up my Facebook, my email, my Twitter, my private messaging, every way they can. And wow, appreciate their tenacity, their determination. It's so unfortunate that they haven't taken time to open up a history book and read, whether it's the Mayflower Compact, whether it's the Old Deluder Satan Act, one of the first educational laws or bills before we were ever a nation in 1642 or 47 that said, if you are going to have a community of a certain size, you have to teach your children how to read so that they can, too, read the Bible and not be fooled by the old deluder Satan. They wanted good citizens in healthy communities, and they knew they needed to be wise and in the Bible to do that. So when we fuss about keeping religion out of school, understand we had religion. We had not just religion, as Patrick Henry says, not just religion, but the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we had that in the schools long before we had this country, long before we had the ACLU and some of the things that's recently in decades have taken it out. And just ask yourself, are schools better now? Better then? And you have to admit they were better then. Less money, test scores were higher, kids were healthier, not the risks that are there now. Kids probably had their guns because back in the day, they probably took their guns and then went hunting on the way after school. It's not a big problem. As Lamar Alexander says, they had their pocket knives, but you didn't think they were going to stab each other. They were healthier then. And if you'd be open-minded, you would admit it. And if you think it's so useless, then why do you care if we teach it? We were better off then. Joining me now is Donna Garner. Donna is a teacher, an author, a writer. She has been one of the guardians on the Common Core that we've been fighting in this nation that continues to win. Do you have the picture handy, my dear producer, Ryan? Do you have the picture handy of the Tennessee State House? Tennessee passed legislation in their House to repeal Common Core in their state. And I think it was going to go through their Senate. I'm not sure if it did or not. Maybe Donna knows. Donna, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Have you heard, did the Senate in Tennessee pass the bill?
Yes. No, not the Senate, I don't believe has, just the House, so far as I know. And the bill, the Tennessee bill, of course, has it's not just the fact they're going to pass, repeal the Common Core standards, but they have an elaborate process for rewriting them and so forth and so on. And it sounds fairly good. There's not much chance for live public hearings. That's my only concern about what the House passed.
Okay. So, Donna Gardner, you have, and let me spell your name for folks, Garner. Donna has been writing on Common Core. You have written now about the HR5 and what we're calling the A+ amendment.
Yes, I'm very concerned about that, Tamara. I don't see anything terribly wrong with the A+ amendment, which is a 10-page document compared to over 600 pages in the House Bill 5, House HR5, for instance. But my concern is that in the small print of the A+ amendment, which they're trying to pass in the Senate, and this is with under Congressman Walker and also, of course, Lamar Alexander, the problem is that it says that private schools would be given public or federal dollars. Now, that sounds good to people who are paying taxes and sending their children to private schools. They think to themselves, oh, this is great because now, why should we have to pay taxes to the public schools and then pay twice for our children to go to private schools? But the problem is that if a private school takes 1 penny of federal dollars, then they fall under all of the federal laws, one of the most egregious being Title IX. Now, Title IX was passed in about 1972. It was under Richard Nixon, and it wasn't a bad law. It just said that there could not be any discrimination based on race, color, national origin, sex, or disability until Obama came along. And under Obama and his Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, in October of 2010, they decided to take the word sex, which obviously meant male or female, and they changed it to gender identity.
And so they changed law. You're saying Arne Duncan and Obama just simply changed law?
Yes.
Without going through the process?
Right.
Once again.
They extrapolated the definition, changed the word sex to mean lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, whatever. In other words, it's the whole LGBTQ agenda.
Right.
So that means that a private school who takes any money then would be bound to follow that law. Now, the problem comes in that they don't mean just tolerance of the LGBT community. They mean acceptance and promotion.
Right.
And that is why we're seeing what happened in Iowa, where you had these 1,000 children of from your state taken to this governor's LGBTQ youth conference, which was under the Safe Schools initiative. And the Safe Schools initiative was followed, it was just right there at the same time in 2010 because Arne Duncan hired Kevin Jennings to come in and be the czar of the Safe School initiative. Kevin Jennings is the founder of Jelson. Jelson is the organization, remember, that took students in Massachusetts several years ago during the school day on school buses to a conference where the children were taught fisting, which is a horrible homosexual activity. So anyway, he became the czar in the Department of Education. He came up with this whole thing of extrapolating the word sex to mean the LGBTQ. And then we have all this money now being poured through Planned Parenthood and being poured down to the states. And that's why your conference there was paid for by, it's called Safe Schools Conference, actually. And that's why these 1,000 students were taken there under the pretense of this being an anti-bullying conference. And have you discussed it tomorrow on your station yet?
We've discussed the anti-bullying conference, but we have not discussed this connection. So
right.
This is so powerful because I knew we were going to talk about Common Core and the HR5 and the concerns of the A+ amendment, but you're telling us because of if a school takes federal money, then under this Title IX, the definition's been changed from sex, male, female, to gender identity, and so they now are fulfilling grants.
Yes, and see, they sent out when they decided to change the extrapolate the meaning. They sent out to over I think it was 5,000 superintendents in all public and private schools, K through 16 in the whole United States, back in October of 2010. And they sent out this Dear Colleague letter that basically said, if you do not promote, tolerate, teach tolerance, promotion, acceptance, and so forth and so on of this agenda, then your school, because you take federal money, your school will lose federal dollars. And also, of course, you can be the Civil Rights Office of Civil Rights would step in and would file charges. This scared the superintendents, the school administrators, the school educators all across the United States. Scared them to death because in their minds, they can't even think about living without all their federal dollars. So the fact they might lose those then forced them into promoting this agenda. And that's why you now have such things as what happened, for instance, in Maine just a couple of days ago in a place called Kittering, Maine. And all the kindergarten teachers there read a book about a transgendered little child, and read this to all the kindergarten children. And this was a child that supposedly had been born with a boy's body and a girl's brain. That is how it's explained to these little K children. And the parents there were not given any opt-out. They were not given any information that their children were going to have this book read to them. And one of the little children came home after this and said, "Mommy, is there something wrong with me? Am I transgender? Because am I a girl in love with a girl?"
Now,
so this is all based upon this whole Title IX.
This is
definition.
so frustrating because as a parent, we all know. I've talked to the biology teachers who would say when we do a unit on disease, I always have students come tell me they think they have that disease. We know that when something goes through your mind, you are more apt, more prone, more inclined to do something or to at least soften to that behavior. The school knows that too. And so they're violating your children, and they're not giving you instance to, as a parent, to say, I agree or disagree. In fact, in Iowa right now, so many things I want to come back to, Donna. We really need you to be a guest for about 2 hours. The bowling conference that you're talking about, I think we started that in 2006. I think it was Vilsack. Shortly after that, I'm not exactly sure on the year we started it, but it's been around too long. And it was started as an anti-bowling conference, but it's now just full-fledged, honestly, right out in its promotion. I'm holding it up for those of you who are watching us live on webcast1.com, webcast1live.com. The Governor's Conference on LGBTQ Youth. The Iowa Governor's Conference on LGBTQ Youth. That's what they flat out call it. This is the 2014, and one of the speakers is called Sharon Needles. Sharon is a male. Sharon is a drag queen. And hear the name, Sharon Needles? What kind of behavior are we promoting to our kids? They know that if they can at least get it in their heads, they've violated them before a parent ever hears about it. So I'm holding it up for those of you who are watching. There's Sharon Needles up here. And then let me open up the other book they handed to our kids that year. This was 2014. And they handed out this book that said, and this should alarm everybody, no matter what you think about the homosexual issue, this should alarm you from your liberty standpoint. The young lady, daughter of 2 moms, is filling out her belief book. Someone says, what's a belief book? It's like a journal. We record our values or something, and then we turn it in at the end of the year. We turn it in at the end of the year. You turn in your values for your teacher. What are we teaching our kids about our liberty, our expression, our privacy of thought? This is alarming in its own right. So that was last year. So this year, Donna, they, as you saw, the Todd Starnes article on Fox News, and for those of you who are listening, I will put that on the Truth for Our Time Facebook page, the Todd Starnes story. They took the 1,000 children, and there were several different workshops, so I don't know what all could have happened in other workshops, but in one particular workshop, and I don't know how to tell people, plug your ears, this is just disgusting. They addressed oral to anal sex. And you'd like to say, and Nate Munson and some of the folks who are defending this conference are saying it was the worst. We're pulling out the highlight. We're highlighting the worst thing that happened at the conference. I don't know if that's true or not true. The fact that it happened at all is wrong. And I also know in February of 2014, I think it's Representative McDermott out of Hawaii, it came to his attention that their curriculum had redefined the anus as I think a genitalia, so that they could also teach oral to anal sex. And I can't believe I'm even discussing this. It's just so horrible. But I want you to know what they're teaching your kids as they were discussing things you could do to make it taste better. It angers me that we even have to talk about this, but they've given it to your kids first. If you're disgusted by it, think what your 7th through 12th, 8th through 12th grade kids heard, and now it's etched in their heads. One of the other questions, what they're saying is this was answers to questions. We had to answer questions. Well, I don't believe all of it was. Certainly when the speaker told them to slash tires of someone supporting traditional marriage with their bumper sticker, that was not an answer to a question. But one of the questions was pornography, and the speaker told them gay porn is better. Now, these are minors. We know that when kids get into pornography, it alters their brain. Studies are showing that it alters their brain. And you have speakers at a conference telling them to watch porn. So, Donna, you're saying this is all tied in to A plus amendment to government money. And so we in Iowa, how could we be looking where this money's coming from? Because Safe Schools is one of the sponsors. I'll look on the back here. I don't know this year, but even some of the businesses around town are sponsors. Safe Schools is a sponsor. Iowa Association of School Boards. There's your tax dollars, right?
Those are all tied to federal dollars. They all go right back. They all go straight back to the Safe Schools Initiative at the U.S. Department of Education. Your state has received grants from the federal government to provide this type of instruction. And if, that's why you're seeing this proliferate through these conferences as they do. One of the things that was presented there at your conference there in Iowa was where girls were told that they need to, how they can properly use binders, which would reduce the visibility of their chests, their breasts, so that they could look as if they are not, that they are lesbians and not, in other words, they can look more manly that way. They were also taught all kinds of things about, they had Sam Killerman was one of the speakers, and he was there at the conference. He was one of the featured speakers, and he is the fellow who came up with the idea of the gingerbread person. And this whole this whole thing has been taught all through the United States through this program. And this is to try to talk kids into thinking that there are just different parts of us and different ways that we are. And there, we have the 3 or 4 different parts of our bodies, and one part might say this and that and so forth. And so you can be, I think I heard the other day that Facebook, because they are so involved in this whole thing, that there are now, I think they had to create something like 73 different definitions on Facebook, so that when you declare yourself, you can't declare yourself male or female any longer. You have a list of something like 73 different combinations of all this stuff.
I can't wait to see what the Olympics are going to look like, right?
I know. I mean, this is how, and the point that I have made as a classroom teacher, and I taught in the public schools for 33 years, and my point is this. What we're supposed to do in all schools, public schools also, is to teach children healthy lifestyles. And the main problem with the LGBTQ lifestyle is that it is deadly. There are terribly they practice very unsafe sexual activities that raise the the percentages of STDs tremendously. Over half of those who have HIV are, men who practice sex with men. I mean, the statistics coming out of the Centers for Disease Control are, they're the only organization in the United States that gathers such data, and they have been this way all along because the human body is not made for entrance, for oral sex, for anal sex, and so therefore the way our bodies are made in those areas do not protect us from entrance from a foreign object. So therefore, there are the cells that are there at the anus do not have the protection that you have in the vagina, and that's for a purpose. They're not made for that, and so therefore, when there's entrance in those areas, then sexually transmitted diseases are transmitted very quickly into the bloodstream. There's rupturing that occurs, and those STDs go right straight into your bloodstream. So, of course, there's always going to be higher percentages of STDs among these who are practicing such unsafe techniques and activities. So, we would not go out in our classrooms, I don't think, and promote the idea of having chain-smoking alcoholics.
Right.
We don't do that. Well, why then? And there is not such a thing as a homosexual gene. There has been no research anywhere that has been peer-reviewed and replicated to prove that there is a gene. It obviously is something associated with our culture, with the way our homes are constructed, with the influences that children are under. And because of this, and because of this push in our society, kids feel pushed into this lifestyle when they've studied the homosexual psyche for years and years, and what they have found is that children who go into that cycle usually in the ages, 5th grade through 7th grade, somewhere in there, they're actually looking for, they need to identify with their own sex. They're actually they're trying to establish their sexuality,
right.
and they're trying to find a friend. They actually just want a friend. And so they want a friend of the same sex. They're trying to bond with someone, and they just want friendship. But then they get into this thing, and they have somebody then who enters their friendship circle, and this person then leads them into thinking, well, because you want me as your friend, you must be a homosexual. And so a lot of times these kids are lured into the lifestyle when all they really wanted was a friend, and they wanted to establish their sexual identity with a friend of the same sex. And many of these folks, by the way, actually go on later in life and come out of their LGBT, lifestyle. They realize that is not what they really are, and they grow out of it and turn it. They come along, and as they get older, and they come into normal sexual relationships in marriage and so forth, and then they realize they really weren't homosexuals at all. So, the irony is that there's less than 3% of our culture who are, homosexuals, and they try to make it sound as if it's just everybody around them is, and it's just they're just simply they have so many myths and so many things that they're saying about their lifestyle. And, of course, they're talking children in these programs. They're talking them into believing those myths, and they're not fact-based. They're not based upon the medical data. And, STDs not only make your life miserable in this life, but they also cause early death. And usually, the fact is, if you have one STD, then you're more open to having other STDs. So in the MSM, that means men having sex with men. That's how they identify those that term by the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, MSM. People who are practicing MSM activities are usually have more than one STD, and they are many of them die in early death because of those disparaging problems.
Now, you have done several years of research as a consultant, so you speak at this not as just someone with an opinion, but you've done research with the CDC. You've got several articles where people can read about this. Where can they find this information from you?
Well, I sent you a bunch of them, Tamara, for
That's
one.
great.
And, those can be posted on your website, or, they can do a Google search if they want to under, LGBT, Donna Garner, LGBT. They can look, of course, we know it's very much promoted by the Common Core. This is the social justice agenda under the Obama administration. They are pushing the LGBT. So you can that's why you're seeing a lot of these things turn up in your Common Core curriculum. You're seeing, they're saying they're going to have a national, curriculum that will be a part of Common Core that's a health curriculum. Something, though, we really need to remember, and this is important because this is often misstated in the newspapers. The newspapers they'll say, well, the Common Core really just deals with English and math. Well, let me make sure we all understand what the official title is for what they now call Common Core English. This is taken from the Common Core website. The Common Core standards for English, language, arts, and literacy in history, social studies, science, and technical subjects. That means that the Common Core takes in every single piece of curriculum, every course in our public schools, and even in private schools, of course, except for math. And so they've got a Common Core English and a Common Core Math. So now you've got it all covered. So because they stress in these Common Core curricula, they stress the informational text. And the informational text then is taken from history, social studies, science, technical subjects. That means when they say science, that means they're going to be including all this LGBT stuff. So, in other words, Common Core is every subject. They can say it's English and math, but because of the way it's done, it covers everything in the schools.
So Donna Garner has been my guest. We are out of time. Donna Garner, thank you for taking time to bring us up to date on this. And I saw the picture of the two male students holding hands on your post, but I hadn't quite gotten it. And in our conversation yesterday, you brought that up as to the connection there. Do we have we're out of time, but do we have actual Common Core assignments promoting homosexuality?
Well, of course.
We do.
Sure.
We need to find those.
That's what this was in Maine.
Okay. But sometimes they'll deny that it was actually Common Core. So if we have it that it's from a Common Core aligned textbook or that it came through a Common Core assignment, we need to get those. If you could get those to me, I'd appreciate it, because people ask. I want to see the assignment that you're saying is, pro-homosexual and proof that it's aligned with Common Core. So
right.
Yeah.
And we know that Appendix B, which is a part of the Common Core English standards, has very, definite pornographic books that are, suggested in there, and of course they give tests that go along with them. I mean, it's curriculum. Common Core is curriculum.
Absolutely.
And they are pushing this whole social justice agenda under which the LGBT falls. So of course it's in there.
So Donna Garner has been my guest today. How people can find you?
Just Donna Garner, and my email address is wgarner@hot.rr.com.
All right. And I'll put that on our Truth for Our Time Facebook page as well. Donna, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for standing strong when others won't. I know sometimes you must feel like you're alone. We all do, and we're out there on the front line. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you, Bye.
You have been given great information on this show. You've been given 2 action items. You need to go to the amicus brief, sign on, and you also need to call your legislator at the federal level. And I'm trying to think what that switchboard, I usually have that switchboard 202. I'm not sure if I have it, 224-3121, 202-224-3121. You can look it up online. Call your legislator and tell them no HR5, no A+ amendment. We want local control, we want parental authority, and we want you to quit teaching the values that go against what our strong foundational values set forth in this country. I'm Tamara Scott. Thank you so much for your time. You've been encouraged. Now never be complacent.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.